This video is going to be different than all the others because I want to talk about a dream that I woke up from today and also some of the dreams that I had last night. Usually I write my dreams out. For those of you who follow me on Facebook, you're very well aware that I am a very active dream walker in my sleep. And you're very aware that I have some very interesting, profound dreams. They don't always make sense. And I try not to give too much meaning to the things that occur in my dream. When I share my dreams, I am only trying to share what I experience and what I remember. I'm not trying to I am not attaching any conclusions or assumptions or meanings to them at all. I like to allow time to reveal to me what certain components or aspects of a dream or a message actually means, and not what my own ego or biases or assumptions want it to mean. The human can taint messages that come from the spirit world when we try to say we know what this and that means. It's a very tricky slope. And I believe deciphering messages, deciphering your symbols, your dreams requires much integrity and self-awareness. So with that being said, I'll start with the dream that I had last night. 2 nights ago. A couple of nights ago, I was having some strange dreams. Too many different components were going on for me to remember any sense of linearity. But the one thing that I really remember the most was being somewhere out in nature, and I'm alone. And I have a campfire, and it's dark out. And in the campfire, about near the campfire, as I'm sitting alone, I decide to start chanting, which I haven't chanted in a very long time. Many of you guys, actually probably all of you, don't know this, but I used to be a member of the Soka Gakkai International, SGI, Soka Gakkai International, which is a lay Buddhist organization. And it was a big part of my life for many years, being in this Buddhist practice. The most familiar way people know this Buddhist practice is through chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So I used to chant and practice this Buddhism every day. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. It was a big part of my life. And at some point, I moved away from it. I went through some confusions, through some doubts in my faith, in what I believe in. And I was also angry and frustrated. And COVID played a big part in that. When 2020 came around, COVID played a big part in that. And I just, with the things that I've been going through, because for someone like me who's been in programs, MK Ultra programs, who has been targeted and subjected through voice to skull technology and things like that, I came to a place where I had a hard time trusting anything, as I needed to reassess myself over the years. And COVID was a big catalyst, and I moved away from a lot of the things that I worked hard in practicing daily in my spiritual life. And I've been kind of bitter and angry for a minute because I didn't know my stance on this Buddhist practice anymore. And I need something. Having a spiritual practice, having something that you do daily is incredibly important. A daily practice is so important, especially in today's day and age where there is much confusion, trickery, and spiritual forces operating from high and unseen places. It's important to have a daily exercise spiritually that keeps you equipped and ready to face these challenges that we deal with in the unseen worlds. So in the dream, I pick up my booklet, my prayer booklet, and it's at this campfire, and I begin chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho. And as I do the first three chants, I begin to go into the first prayer. What eventually happened is the prayer and the chants and the frequencies and the vibration, it activated something deep in my subconscious where I was no longer reading from the prayer book and was performing, you know, I want to say galactic, but I'm hesitant in saying galactic because I don't want to feel like I'm just throwing a word, an adjective at it that sounds cool. But my throat chakra unlocked, and something from deep in the subconscious also unlocked and began expressing through my throat chakra, where now I was, in a way, throat singing, toning, speaking a light language or whatever you will. And I was more like, I can't even exactly repeat it, but there was a rhythm to it. And in the dream, as I'm doing this, I'm aware of what's happening, and I can feel the energies of what's being activated and manipulated through the things I'm doing. And as I'm doing this, all of a sudden to my left, there was not a mountain, but a high rock cliff, pretty high up. And all of a sudden, this man appears in the rocks up there. And this man, he's dressed in what I would call like traditional, like Japanese style, like robes. And he had maybe even Chinese, I don't know. And he has like an interesting top hat, not top hat, but a hat that was raised. And he had very clean, clear, like plush skin in the face, just very clean, healthy skin on the face. And it was hard to tell. There was obviously some Asian blood in him, but he didn't look like 100% like Japanese, Chinese, Philippines, or whatever. There was definitely a mixture of blood of races in this person. And so he appears, and I'm not aware of his appearance. When I become aware of his appearance is when he begins to speak on his own. And then that's when I see him. And what he does is he says a chant of his own. And then the chant of his own brought me back into a familiar sense of identity that I have. And so what he says is, he goes, Sham, something like that. He says Shambhala, as in the kingdom of Shambhala. And as he's saying this, to the right, there is a portal opening, a gate. So through his chants, through what he's doing, he's opening the gateway to enter into the kingdom of Shambhala. And this morning I was explaining the dreams that I've been having to my wife, and I'm telling her how I get taken into inner earth underground. into the Shambhala kingdom. And she goes, yeah, I thought Shambhala kingdom was in the sky and we ascend into another dimension in the heavens and in the sky. And I go, there probably is something in the sky that we can access, as an air temple or something. But from my experiences and my personal connection in understanding myself as a Shambhala warrior is the kingdom is in inner earth, underground. And it's not necessarily another dimension, but it is another dimension in inner earth. There's gates, there's seals, there's protections. It's hidden. So the Shambhala, it opens. And so yesterday morning when I woke up, I'm at home and I'm processing that dream. And I feel really good because I feel like my resistance, my confusion, my doubts on the practice have cleared. They finally cleared away. And I have a lot of respect for the Soka Gakkai International. I have a lot of respect for my fellow members in the Soka Gakkai International. And where things fell off for me, where things split, is in the political arena, in a way, because the practice itself helps people change their lives tremendously. It helped me change my life tremendously. And the community within the practice is a beautiful supporting community. Without the community and the things that I was going through 10 years ago when I became a member, I would have struggled a lot harder. And the thing about the Soka Gakkai International and this Buddhist practice is that it is something true, it's something pure, and it's something that has incredible potential to bring real harmony and change into this world in an absolute positive way. And so where I started to get upset is in understanding how the organization itself is infiltrated. It needs to be infiltrated, right? Because there's certain parties, there's certain families, there's certain ancient elites that don't want something like this to come into power, right? That takes away their grip, their control. So the organization itself is not necessarily hijacked, but infiltrated. And so there are watchdogs and guards within the organization. And that's where I really started to get pissed off, because I could see this and I understand it. And so, it triggered a lot within me. Having that dream was very beautiful because it brought me back to an origin point of my own self and my own spiritual journey and my own identity. For many years, I've identified and resonated with being a Shambhala warrior. I have memories from when I was a child. When I was a child and I would walk home from school, that time that it took for me to walk home from school by myself in the city, that time in between, I was disassociating and going into another realm where I would meet with another aspect of myself. And the other aspect of myself was an ancient Buddhist monk who was a Shambhala warrior. And there are many kids still to this day, when they're born, they remember being a monk. I have an encounter and a relationship with a family where a child within that family is one of those children that remembered. That's a story for another time. And so I'm one of those children that remembers having spent a lifetime being completely devoted to a Buddhist path, becoming a bodhisattva, a Shambhala warrior. And when I would walk home, I would be in this other dimension where there was a library, and I didn't really read books there, but what I received was support from this Buddhist aspect of myself in how to remember the ways of being a bodhisattva in a world that is in pure chaos. Because if you know anything about my upbringing, it was not an easy childhood. Growing up in LA, drug-addicted parents, surrounded by gangs, surrounded by violence, in the city, a lot of abuse, a lot of abandonment, neglect, sexual abuse. I had a very challenging childhood, very traumatic childhood. And one of the things that helped me survive all of that was this connection that I had to myself in an ancient aspect of myself. So I've always had this familiarity with Buddhism, with being a bodhisattva and the Shambhala kingdom. There are many mysteries to it that I don't know. It's not like I've read many books about it. I've hardly read anything about it. What I know is just from my experiences and what I believe I remember. So this morning, the dreams that I was having this morning were very interesting. There were so many components to this dream, and I'm still working in deciphering them. And the first part of this dream that I'm going to share was more of something trying to come in, or something trying to manipulate and put overlays. And then the second part of this dream that I'm going to explain is the core, the truth, the root. There may be some of you that know what I'm saying in regards to the psychic, technological battles we are in, especially those who've been in programs, especially those who've been trying to remember what they experienced in programs, false memories, psychic projections, remote viewers, psychic warriors. This is very real stuff. This is stuff that I've been navigating and experiencing nearly my entire life, if not my entire life. So the first part of the dream from this morning that I can remember was I'm pretty near a home somewhere, and my brother-in-law is with me, and we're waiting for my sister and her two daughters to arrive. And we see the car in the distance, and the car in the distance was this bright key lime BMW that was all souped up. It had the spoiler, it had the different body modifications, it was low to the ground, it was loud, it was fast, it was ready for fucking NASCAR racing or something. And the person driving the car was my deceased mother. My mother doesn't drive. She never drove. She never even got a license. She doesn't know how to drive. So it was interesting seeing her in this unusual car. She doesn't know anything about cars. So she's speeding down and she passes by, and my sister and the two girls are in the car. And somehow as she passes by, they didn't physically get out of the car, but they were just transported out of the car and onto the lot that we were at. And then my mom just keeps driving, and we freak out because we know she doesn't know how to drive. So we don't know if she's panicking. I was worried for her, thinking she was going to crash and die, but eventually I don't know what happened. And then from that point of the dream, I was suddenly in another space. And in this space, it was dark. And I was back in Los Angeles. And I was in some warehouse, factory part of the city where there were a lot of industrial businesses. But where I was at, the people there weren't workers. They were agents. They were mercenaries. They were soldiers in a way. And they were all wearing very similar clothing, a lot of black, cargo pants, jacket, weapons, things that they'll need being out in the field. And I'm also one of them. And me and another man, we suddenly, I don't know what happened, but him and I, we figured something out. And and through that, we decided we need to find a way to break away from this. And so while everybody's getting ready to go into this van or this bus, I have my backpack, and we get keys for a different vehicle, and we hop in there, and we basically, we go rogue. We go rogue and we break away. And we're driving through the city, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And there's this sense of kind of panic at the same time. And I remember looking out the window and just seeing different parts of LA that I remember in my mind from when I was a child. And from that point, the dream, everything switches again. And from that switch, all of a sudden, I'm on some kind of college campus where there were a lot of students, a lot of young adults. There were dorms, there were classrooms. It was a big campus, and I was a student there. And in this part of the dream, I don't remember being there, living days and days, but I was there for days. There were certain things that I remember doing more than once. And that one specific thing was being in line to receive my meal for the day. Something about the cafeteria and being in line at the cafeteria, I remember doing for many days. And what it was about the cafeteria were the old people that were there, that were like not chaperones, but just the staff, right? The staff of the campus. They were all older folks, borderline retired age. And every time I'm in the cafeteria and I'm in line to get my food and I look around, everywhere I look, there's always one of these older staff people watching us, watching me. And their image, their appearance, being this kind of older person, was an illusion, because that's to make my defenses drop, right? Oh, it's just an old person just being old watching. They're harmless. I can take them down. But when you really look at them and tuned into their energy signature, there's something far intense and powerful within that person, where what you're seeing is actually an illusion. And I remember that. I remember feeling that intensity and that pressure every time as I'm in line, and I'm like, what the fuck? Where am I? What is going on? And then there was the day that I remember. And on this day, I'm heading towards one of my classes, but I have some time. So I stop into one of my friend's dorm. And my friend is actually the same person that went rogue with me in the previous experience. And I go into his dorm and he's on his computer and I sit on his bed or chair or couch or whatever. And he's watching a music video and from a band called Amon Amarth. They're a Viking death metal band. And I open my computer, and on my computer, there are all these weird videos and images that were on my screen that I'd never seen before. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? I'm like, what is going on? Weird shit. And I'm like in shock. I'm like, this is weird. I have no idea where all this stuff has come from and why it's on my computer right now. And my buddies, I don't know, gosh, I don't know, but that is weird. And all I remember, not all I remember, but in that particular moment, like the thing that was the most sinking into my mind was the Amon Amarth song. And I look at my watch and see that it was 1:03 p.m. And I go, oh my gosh, dude, how did 30 minutes pass by? We're fucking late for our class. And I swear, I was only in there for a few minutes. And we're like, oh my gosh, let's hurry. I put my computer in my bag. I walked out of his room, and his room was actually the first room to the door of the building where there's the hallway of all these other dorms, of all these other rooms. So I exit his room, then I exit the building, and I'm walking up towards where my classroom is. And I enter the classroom, and I'm in this large classroom. Classroom's bigger than my fucking house. And all the desks, there's maybe two or three rows of desks, but they're shaped in a U formation around the walls of the room. And then the open part of the room is where there's the instructor and chalkboard or projector screen or whatever for presentations and all that shit. And I'm walking into the classroom, and over here, there's a woman that I know. And I don't know her in real life, but in the dream, I knew her. And there was definitely a romantic attraction. So I don't know if in that dream we were in a relationship or not. But I stopped to say hello to her. And she's sitting, I'm standing. And so as I'm there, she puts her hand on my leg and she looks up to me and she smiles. As she smiles, I remember feeling like this attraction and this love for her. So that's telling me that in the dream we were in a relationship. And what happened from there? So from there, okay, I remember I sat down, and then as I'm there, the instructor of the classroom, I don't know if the instructor was the person who did this or what, but from that point, time and space started to collapse into itself and move and warp and then stretch. And I was all of a sudden in another location. So I don't know if I was transported or what, but it was me and maybe 5 other students that were transported into someplace else, including the woman who I possibly was in a relationship with. Don't even know her name. And in fact, I think she was more of a handler in whatever illusion world entrapment that space was. And now we're in this other space where we're on the walking path towards this big mansion house, almost like a castle or a chateau, whatever the fuck you call those fucking massive old style European homes. And me and the group that I was with, we were all dressed as superheroes. We had masks, some of us had capes, we had the interesting, cool suits, and we felt super. Like there was something super about us, superhuman, meta-human. As we're walking and approaching this door, in my mind, I'm telling myself in my mind, this is Disneyland. You are in Disneyland. This is Disneyland. And that just kept repeating in my mind over and over, Disneyland. You are in Disneyland. This is Disneyland. And so we enter through the door. And as we enter through the door, that section of the house or the castle, whatever, that section was filled with all of these artifacts, all kinds of different artifacts from different eras of time. Not all of them were necessarily ancient things. Some of them were like an old celebrity's hair clip or something. There was just so many random things everywhere. And it wasn't like that these things were just a mess scattered randomly everywhere. No, everything was meticulously placed, but it was crowded. There was a lot of it, and it was from floor to ceiling everywhere. So it was like almost like a museum collection of sorts. When everything had its own power and energy to it, you can feel it. I think even some of the items were cursed. And as we're like moving through this space, I'm looking around trying to take in as many things as I can see while my mind is telling me, this is Disneyland. This is Disneyland. And then at some point, I trip into a chair or something. And that's interesting that I say those words, trip chair. Because if you know anything about the programs and MK Ultra and the things, then you know what the trip chair is. So I trip into a chair. I fall back into a chair. And what's odd about that is I couldn't see the chair, but I'm in a chair. And there's couch, like an old Victorian style couch adjacent to the chair. And then the rest of the party is sitting right here, and I can see them all dressed like superheroes. And one of them comments on my recklessness or my lack of paying attention of where I'm going, that I could have broken something. And I tell them, no, something tripped me into this chair. The house or something pulled me to sit into this chair. I didn't just fall into it. And the instructor from the classroom was there, and he's like the guide or the watchdog or whatever, the chaperone of us moving through this house. And he's over here, and he starts telling us some stuff. He starts telling us some stuff like, we need to save the world, we're special, blah, blah. And I'm in the chair and I'm watching the party I'm with listen and receive this information. And then I just start laughing. I just start laughing really hard and loud in the dream. I'm like, huh? Just laughing. And the group I'm with, they're looking at me and they're like, what's so funny? And I'm like, can't you see? Don't you see this nonsense? We are in fucking Disneyland. And this guy over here is trying to sell us some fucking bullshit story that we're special and we need to save the world. What the fuck is going on? How did we even get here? And I just kept laughing at how funny it all was to me. And this laugh was like uncontrollable. It just came. It was an uncontrollable laughter. And then from that point, everything in that dream switched again, where now all of a sudden I'm back underground in the Shambhala kingdom. And in the Shambhala kingdom, as I was there, the other people that were with me, the other students, they're with me in the Shambhala kingdom as well. And the same man who chanted Shambhala and opened the gates to bring me in there, he was there. And so I had been there the entire time. And what happened is that finally my here and now awareness dropped into that part of me located there. Because before I was trapped in some kind of weird simulation program scenario, and I snapped out of it and got brought back down. And I think I helped the other people snap out of it and brought them with me into this other space. And so the guide, the Shambhala guide, he is in essence giving us the orientation about where we are in the kingdom and just some things to be careful about, things to be mindful about. He's giving us the orientation. It's like, you are not from here, or you're new to this space, and I need to show you the ropes. And we're walking, coming up to this river. And as we're coming up to this river, he begins to tell us a story about the river. And what's amazing about the story that he tells us is he was able to project the visual images of what the story was into our mind. So he was able, in a way, to play the flashbacks in our minds. And the story took place 800 years ago. And what happened 800 years ago on that river was a young boy who was kind of like a baby, kind of like a toddler, not an infant, not a newborn, but big enough to kind of wander around, not really walk, but crawl. And this baby boy was blonde haired and blue eyed. And he was of a very higher echelon royal family, royal bloodline that resides in the Shambhala kingdom. And he somehow wandered by himself to the river. And what the guide was teaching us about the river, because he was saying, do not touch the river. Do not swim in the river. Do not touch the river. Do not dip your toes in the river. Do not touch the river ever. Because the river was actually a spiritual being. And it was a river and a spiritual being that moves through all dimensions, existing through all of time and space. And it flowed underground through the Shambhala kingdom. And it was a river that required high levels of respect. You do not touch this river. It's a sacred river. Wasn't malicious, wasn't evil, but it was dangerous. Because touching the river, when you touch it, and also if you fully immerse yourself in the river, try to swim through it, what's going to happen is eventually the body won't die, but what's going to happen, because what the river does is it'll pull your soul, your spirit, out of the body. And the spirit can't escape the river. It gets caught in the current and then just has to flow all through time. and it's just stuck there. And so what happened to the baby is he got close to the river and was touching it with his hands. And so the river, through his fingers, was draining away his soul, his spirit. It didn't take all his spirit, but it was taking some. And then he was found and pulled back from the river, and the child was incomplete. They can see that the child, that aspects of the child's spirit has been taken by the river. And so we're being shown then now what they do with the child is they bring the child to this I don't want to say temple, but they bring the child to another space where they put him on the ground. And on the ground, there's like all these sigils and seals. And they put the baby on there, and there's candles and stuff. And then so there's these very powerful Shambhala high priests, priestesses, I guess we'd call them. And they're chanting and they're doing mudras, and they're also petitioning to the river spirit. And they're asking the river spirit, will you please return the parts of his spirit that you took from him? He's a baby. This was an accident. And so the river spirit agreed and brought those parts of his spirit and put it back into the child. But what the river spirit also did that the priests and priestesses weren't aware that it was going to happen was that the river spirit also put a part of itself into the child. And when the ceremony was complete and the child was complete again, they were able to energetically read and look into the baby and see, okay, his spirit is 100% intact, but now he's not alone. Now a piece of the powerful water spirit in this person as well. And we don't know what this means. We don't know what this means. And so we are going to have to just see what happens, right? Because it's the water, it's the spirit of the river. And we respect this river. It's a sacred being that exists. It's a primordial being, essentially. And so our guide, he pretty much plays this in our minds like a movie. And he's, yeah, don't fuck with this river. And the baby, he's still alive 800 years later, not as a baby. He's now in his adult, mature age, but he's not ancient old, but he would be like my age or look like me, right? But very powerful. And he stays secluded. It's by choice. He stays very secluded, and it's hard to reach him. It's hard to have an audience with him. And he has mystical powers in a way. And so I've been holding off to tell you the name of the river, because the whole time he's played that movie in our mind, he was repeating the name of the river over and over and over. And the name of the river was the Orinoco River. And he kept saying, Orinoco River, Orinoco River, Orinoco River. Don't touch the Orinoco River. Respect the Orinoco River. The Orinoco River is not a river. The Orinoco River is a spiritual being. Orinoco River, Orinoco River, Orinoco River. And then we're crossing this bridge over the river. And that's the end of that part of the dream. And now the last part of the dream that I remember before waking up was in my home where I live right now. An ex-girlfriend that I had when I lived in Oregon walks through the door, and I'm like, whoa, what are you doing here? And I was like, it's nice to see you. It's nice to see you. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're doing well. And I give her a hug, and then I ask, where's Ranger, my dog? Because when we split up, it was a nasty breakup, and she took and kept my dog. And all this stuff. And she was like, I came to bring him to you. And then Ranger appears, but Ranger was not the same dog that I had. Ranger, because my dog Ranger was white. He had white fur with some silver and some gold. He was a beautiful dog, my little Ranger. And it was the same body, same shape as Ranger, except all black hair. And I got on my knees and I hugged Ranger and I just started crying. And Ranger was crying too because he missed me and I missed him. And the bond that we had, just there was just a very powerful energy exchange between the both of us. And so that was the end of that dream that I had when I woke up this morning. And as I'm waking up, I'm just like, and I woke up at 6:30 a.m. and I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on? This is a crazy dream. And the words Orinoco were in my mind. And I'm like, Orinoco, what the fuck is that? Is that even a real word? Have I heard that word before? Now, I've been on this earth for 35, 36 years now. So I'm sure at some point in my life, this brain of mine has heard the word Orinoco. So I'm not saying that I've never heard the word before, but Orinoco and Orinoco River, those are things that I do not hear every day. They're not things I hear every year. Okay. I don't know if or when I've ever heard the word Orinoco River. So I go online and I start spelling Orinoco River. And there are a few things that come up. There's an Orinoco River here in Minnesota. And then there's an Orinoco River in Venezuela and Colombia. And the Orinoco River, and there's also a fucking song by Enya called Orinoco Flow or some shit like that. Not really much of an Enya fan, but it's that song that goes, sail away. And I do a little research on the Orinoco River, just very little, just to learn some facts. And the Orinoco River is just this massive, it's one of the biggest fucking rivers that flows through the Amazon in Venezuela. And the conquistadors, when they arrived, the Orinoco River is when they started meeting with the indigenous people that wore gold, a lot of gold. And that is what started the legend of El Dorado, right? The city of gold in Venezuela through the gorge, the gateways of the Orinoco River. Okay. And Venezuela just suffered two devastating earthquakes where many people have died. And it is one of the world's richest deposits of gold, oils, minerals. It's just an incredibly wealthy place of natural resources in Venezuela. And here's this Orinoco River that flows through there. But I wasn't satisfied with just discovering the Orinoco River because we're talking about Shambhala Kingdom. So there was something also Asian that I was looking for as well. So I typed on a Google search, Orinoco Japanese or Orinoco Japan. And what came up through the search was the Orinoco Rock, which is a massive 60-meter volcanic monolith in Utoro on the Shiratoko Peninsula in Hokkaido, Japan. The name comes from the Ainu word, the rock that sits there, or the indigenous Orinoco tribe. Orinoco Rock is one of the 8 scenic spots of Shiratoko and is a popular stop for travelers visiting Shiratoko National Park. And there are roughly 170 to 190 steps to climb to the top, which features a 360-degree panoramic view of the city and the harbor and the Shiratoko mountain range. And so, the Orinoco tribe historically referred to as the Orinoco or the Orok people, is an indigenous ethnic group closely associated with the Okoks culture that historically inhabited the northern coast of Hokkaido, the Kuril Islands, and Sakhalin Island. They are distinct from the ethnic Yamato mainland Japanese and are traditionally considered separate from, though heavily intertwined with, the Ainu people. They are linked to the ancient maritime hunter-gatherers who migrated across the Sea of Okhotsk. So the Ainu people and the Oroko people, these are some of the first, what they say, the first peoples, ethnic people in Japan. And if you ever see images of them, these are people, they have like dreads, they have full beards, they don't look like full Japanese people. There's a lot of mystery of these people, and they do facial tattoos. And so it's interesting. It's just all very interesting in what's going on in this experience that I have here. And I will say that yesterday, because I had the dream of chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, it was an interesting day I had yesterday. My Wi-Fi was down all day yesterday, and I had to call the internet company, and somehow the IP address for my modem just completely disappeared. No more IP address. And the guy on the phone was reading my signals throughout the night, right, as I'm sleeping and dreaming. And he said that the IP modem signals were, he said they were bouncing all over the place. He said they were going high, they were dropping, they were going high, they were dropping. And then at some point, the signal is just gone. No more IP address. And he's like, this is super unusual. He's like, I don't ever see this. So we had to have a cable guy come and install a new modem and give us a new IP address for our internet. And so because of that, for hours, the entire day yesterday, my biggest distraction in life is down. My computer, my phone, right? The internet, biggest distraction is down. And so I'm feeling that, right? I'm feeling the, oh my God, where's the stimulation? Where can I need to go on the internet? I have to make a video. I need to say some shit. Let me scroll for a minute. And I just kept remembering the dream and the Shambhala. And I'm like, you know what? So I reset my Gohanzan. I had my Gohanzan stationed somewhere else in my house, and there were other things in front of it. It was just something that I just kept stacking ornaments all around it. So I reset my Gohanzan, and I made a new altar right here next to my desk. And I'll show you guys. How do I do this? There we go. So now my Gohanzan, excuse me, is right there. I have my prayer beads. I have my bell. And respectfully, we do not show the Gohanzan to the camera, to the internet. Respectfully, that's something we don't do. But you open this up, and then there's the ancient scroll of the Gohanzan, which allows you to actually hack into the matrix. And there's something alien about chanting. There's something cosmic when you're doing these prayers. Nyotomu, Shifu, the rhythm and the tones and everything, the frequencies, there's something cosmic that comes through. And Nichiren Daishonin was a Buddha reincarnate who created this practice. And I believe, and Nichiren Daishonin was an Aquarius. And I believe he really tapped into some celestial forces, some cosmic powers that helped him inscribe the Gohanzan and create the practice, create these prayers. So when you're chanting, when you're doing these prayers, you're connecting to very high celestial frequencies. And it feels so good to reconnect to that. because it helped me a lot. And it's such a beautiful resonance. So with all that being said, this was a long video of me just telling you about my fucking dream. But as I said, I have a lot of dreams in life, and this was a very interesting one. And because of the whole Orinoco River aspect, I'm meditating and I'm sitting and I'm pondering and also waiting for more synchronicities to help me understand why. What's with the story of the boy touching the river and now having a part of the river spirit in him? What's with the story of the Orinoco River being underground in the kingdom of Shambhala? Who are these ancient people? The Ainu people, the Okonsku people, or however you pronounce that. Very interesting things. Yeah. So with that being said, peace.